Hi everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another fantastic show for you this week. We have some amazing titles, some of the biggest titles from last year. We have some of my favorite labels, including a really big deep dive into the latest Vinegar Syndrome titles and all their various partner labels. We have so much to get into. As always, I'll try to give as broad of an overview as possible, while still giving you everything you need to know about each title. If you want a little bit more in-depth, make sure to go to GeekVibesNation.com within a week or two of this video being released, and I'll likely have a written review for most of these titles. But for now, I'll try to give you just like a broad overview, and I'll start off with what is probably our next Best Picture Oscar winner. From Warner Brothers is the new 4K Ultra HD release of One Battle After Another from Paul Thomas Anderson. This is one of the best films to come out of last year. It is definitely in my top 10, in which Paul Thomas Anderson unites with Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Regina Hall, and newcomer Chase Infinity to tell this tale of revolutionaries trying to start their revolution, not exactly winning, having to hide out for years, trying to evade a villainous Sean Penn, and try to kind of get their lives together and maintain their fractured relationships after everything goes to hell at the beginning. It's a really interesting, sprawling tale, nearly 3 hours long, but never lets up on the pace. It is so breathlessly paced. You're always engaged in the action. There's very funny a lot of the times, but also very heartbreaking and thrilling. It just delivers everything you want out of a blockbuster, out of a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. It is one of his most frenetic movies to date. There's a lot of forward momentum. Even though There Will Be Blood had the big oil silos sequence, there's so much more going on in One Battle After Another that just makes it such an entertaining movie, but also has a lot of thematic weight to it, and it is one of Paul Thomas Anderson's best. I'm really glad to have this on 4K Ultra HD in Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos audio. It looks incredible. This was shot on film VistaVision, and it looks amazing on 4K. The Dolby Vision is incredible in terms of the color replication. Everything is deep and nuanced. The Dolby Atmos track definitely is effective, and whenever there are kinetic scenes like car crashes and everything, it definitely hits when it needs to. The only thing lacking on this particular release are special features. There are no special features on here, but Warner Brothers has said already that later this year there will be another release with an extra disc of special features and stuff for those who are patient and really want special features. You can wait on that, but if you just want the movie itself, or you just need the movie itself and you're impatient, this 4K release is terrific, and I think fans will be very pleased with the audio-visual presentation. You'll just be missing out on special features, which they will be remedying later in the year. At least they're not springing this on you way after you bought it. They've said this ever since the first press release that came out, that they were going to be doing this kind of special edition release. But for now, you can own one of the best movies of 2025, and just look forward to it winning the Best Picture Oscar, because it'll be one of the best Picture winners that we've had in quite a while. It's a great movie and really a great disc from Warner Brothers. One that I don't think will make the Best Picture lineup, despite its predecessor doing so, is from Universal and the musical sequel Wicked for Good, in which we continue the story from Wicked. We have all of our returning players, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, who continue to do great work in movies that are a little bit of a mixed bag for me. This one even more so than the first film. This one, I enjoyed the stage play when I saw it over a decade ago in person, but this I understand why they made it into two films, mostly money. But they were trying to flesh out the material and kind of give a little bit more nuance. But the second installment doesn't really use the time that it is allotted. It's shorter than the first movie, but it's still about 2 hours and 15 minutes long. And they don't use the time wisely to kind of remedy some of the shortcomings of the stage play in this. I got about like an hour and 20 minutes into this, and I was like, it doesn't feel like anything's really happened in this movie. And that's kind of how I felt about the entire movie. Like, there's some entertaining songs and everything, and the performances are great. But just in terms of the narrative, it just really kind of felt very sluggish to me. And I think the ending message of things in terms of how they deal with fascism and like not really confronting the core problems, I think is a really weird message to leave the movie off on. I won't spoil anything, but it's very weird. But there are some good songs and the performances are great. And obviously, if you love the first part, you'll probably love the second part. I was kind of middle of the road on the first part, and I was kind of middle of the road to lower than that on this part. Still decent enough time watching it. It just really, it didn't really have the juice this time. It just didn't really have a lot to it, and all the strongest songs in the musical seem to be more front loaded on the original movie. But like I said, if you're a fan of this, this is a good 4K presentation, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos audio. Looks amazing with Dolby Vision. I'm not a big fan of the cinematography, but it's accurate to how it's supposed to look with a little very contrasty look. But the colors that are there look nice. Dolby Atmos is fantastic. The music, the songs and everything sound really amazing. And you get some really nice textures with the 4K presentation, especially with some of the characters' transformations that you'll see in this second part of the movie. In terms of special features, you get a commentary track from the director, John M. Chu. But unfortunately, you don't get a commentary track this time from Cynthia and Ariana, which is a disappointment. But you do get that, the director commentary track. You get a sing-along version of the movie if you opt for that. You get some deleted scenes, a 50-ish minute making of featurette, which is pretty solid, and additional featurettes. Yeah, just not the most satisfying conclusion to this story. I was hoping it would kind of improve even more to like round out everything to its highest point, but as is, Wicked for Good is just kind of a passable film that is a little bit of a disappointment ultimately, but it's held up by the performances for sure. And it's a really solid disc if you like the movie. It's definitely a visual delight. Heading over to 20th Century Studios and their 4K release of Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, in which Jeremy Allen White, who I recently talked about with the show Shameless and a star of The Bear, portrays the boss, Bruce Springsteen, during a period in which he is making his classic Nevada album. And this was definitely kind of compared to kind of traditional biopics, this is definitely more compressed. It's not a cradle to the grave biopic, especially since Bruce is still with us, thankfully. But it is more of a slice of life of just like a month or so, for the most part, of Bruce's life, with flashbacks to his childhood, and then a little bit of a jump forward in time as well. But it is the making of this album that is kind of the thrust of the movie, and Bruce is a singer that's interesting because he doesn't have a lot of the traditional demons that some biopics have to deal with. Like, we're not dealing with like a lot of like addiction issues and other stuff. But what I really liked about this, and what I like what director Scott Cooper did with this, is he takes it more internal, and it is more of kind of a exploration of like mental health and trauma from like his childhood, and like how mental health issues impacted him from like his dad's behavior, and how that kind of lingers inside him. and how it impacts his relationships, that his interpersonal relationships that he has with the people around him. And you also have like Jeremy Strong as his manager, which I really love this character in terms of like it's not their traditional like shady manager who's trying to take advantage of the artist. Like he's a really supportive manager who wants the best for Bruce, which I think is a nice refreshing change of pace. So people who are expecting some of the like I said, traditional beats of biopics may be a little confused about how some of the turns in this, or may seem a little bit anticlimactic. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid movie. I'm not like I'm getting a little bit burned out on biopics, but if you're doing something a little bit out of the norm, such as this, it's a little bit better for me. And I did also really like A Complete Unknown last year. So if they're done well, I still do enjoy them, and I thought this one was done well. I think they underutilized Mark Maron, because I'm a big Mark Maron fan, but I was glad to see him pop up for a few minutes here and there. But in terms of this 4K release, it's a really nice presentation, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos audio. Everything looks really nice, just nice textures on the period costumes, like all like sweat and like post performance is like very clear. Dolby Vision has like really nice colors, and some of the lighting especially. There's a little bit of like Christmas lights early on in the movie because it takes place like December, January time period, and those look nice. And the Atmos, it's about Bruce Springsteen, so you want good audio, and it does work really well on that front with the immersive audio, and all the songs hit how you want them to hit. In terms of special features, there's a 4-part documentary that runs right at like 34 minutes long, which is pretty decent by today's standards for a major studio release. Wish there would have been a little bit more, but I'm glad we got what we got. And yeah, overall, if you're a Springsteen fan, worth checking this out. Jeremy Allen White does a really amazing job as Bruce. And I think this is a pretty solid movie all around. So Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, definitely worth checking out if you like Jeremy Allen White or Bruce Springsteen. Next up from Lionsgate Limited, we have the 4K release of Cabin Fever unrated. Some of you may have seen that I got to speak to director Eli Roth last week, and that is on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked that out, please check that out. So I won't go over this too much, but we did speak about this release quite in depth, and really glad to finally have this in hand because I didn't have it before talking to him. But really glad to have this movie about a group of friends heading off to a cabin to have a fun weekend, and then kind of get waylaid by a flesh-eating virus and among other obstacles. This is a really nice 4K release. I won't go too deeply into it just because I spoke about it on that video, but going back to the kind of original negative, this was shot on film. This goes back to the original like festival cut that Eli Roth played at Toronto those many years ago, over 20 years ago. Everything's been newly restored in 4K, Dolby Vision, new Dolby Atmos track. This gets the video looking closer to Roth's intent than it ever has been before. It kind of brings out all the nuances of kind of like the costume designs and makeup effects. All the gloriously bloody makeup effects are in full effect, and this just especially at me making a jump from DVD to 4K was a major jump, but even comparing from the included Blu-ray to the 4K, it is a nice uptick with the Dolby Vision and everything, and the Dolby Atmos does sound nice. You also get all the previous special features, including the original 5 commentary tracks that were recorded for the DVD, and the commentary track that was recorded for the unrated Blu-ray, for a grand total of 6 commentary tracks. So many commentary tracks to get through. You also get all the previous archival special features, making up featurette, deleted scenes, all that kind of stuff. And you also get 2 new special features, including a new 56-minute retrospective documentary, which is incredible. I highly recommend checking that out. The people at Lionsgate Limited have been doing such a good job with some of these new documentaries, and just they get pretty much all, not everyone, but nearly every cast member back, and Eli Roth and the producers and some of the production people all back to reflect on their time. And like you get like Ryder Strong, all the like the main women in the movie, and just so many people sharing stories about how this production was pretty chaotic for a first time feature, but like how everyone really believed in it and everything. And then there's also a restoration supplement that runs about 8 minutes long that talks about the kind of the 4K restoration, the Dolby Vision, the Atmos track, all that kind of stuff, which really kind of gets into the nitty gritty, which I really appreciate. I thought that was great. So if you're a fan, a horror fan, if you're an Eli Roth fan, this is the definitive way to own Cabin Fever for sure. Really glad to have this on 4K, and so glad that Eli Roth was so involved in this release to make sure it was the best possible. So Cabin Fever on 4K exclusively at Lionsgate Limited. You cannot get it on Amazon or anywhere else, but if you go to Lionsgate Limited, make sure to pick this up. And along with pretty much all the other releases I've talked about from them, you can see on previous episodes of No Streaming Required. But they release so many great products, and this is just another one of them. So Cabin Fever on 4K. And next from Music Box Films, we have the documentary Naked Ambition, which is about photographer Bunny Yeager, who is described as the most beautiful photographer ever. So you have Bunny, who was a model herself back in the day, who became a world-renowned photographer, shooting many like pinup models and different women, people like Betty Page and like other pinup models. And this documentary really kind of tries to give Bunny her flowers. She has interviews from people like Dita Von Teese, Larry King, Bruce Weber. There's a lot of people here that worked with her or knew her in some way that really are like family members and stuff, who kind of discuss what made Bunny such an amazing photographer, not just in terms of her, like how precise she was in her compositions, how she was able to work with her subjects because she kind of knew what she was talking about, because she was a model herself, and she was she knew kind of the different angles that would work and the lighting, and where people that they describe, like how she would shoot people who weren't necessarily the most like breathtaking like subjects, but once they got in front of her camera, she could pull out that beauty inside them and make them look the best they ever looked. And it's such a fascinating look at a woman who probably because of like how physically beautiful she is herself, she probably wasn't taken as seriously as a photographer at that time as she should have been. And just looking back at her and making sure that she is known to everyone and making sure she is given the proper respect as an artist as she should. So I really like this documentary. Wonderful work from Music Box Film. Blend of talking heads and archival footage and clips and everything, photographs. If that sounds interesting to you, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this. It looks really nice on Blu-ray and HD. Of course, some of the clips they use are like older, more kind of banged up clips, but everything within it looks as good as it possibly can. Soundtrack sounds nice and rich and full and lossless audio. You get some additional interviews and some unused scenes and stuff that didn't make the movie. But Music Box Films, I love them, and glad that they were able to release this one on Blu-ray. I think it's a very special release, and you should make sure to check it out if you're a documentary fan or interested in old school pinup photography. You'll definitely be pleased with what you see. And now is when we start going exclusively to Vinegar Syndrome titles, and it is Vinegar Syndrome all the way to the end now, in which we start out with one of their big beginning of the year releases is Dario Argento's Phantom of the Opera. I believe it's 1998, his adaptation of this. I've actually talked about this movie on probably the previous iteration of the show, the Video Addict. That I talked about I believe the Scorpion release for that one. But now watching this again, I actually liked the movie a little bit more the second time I watched it. I was kind of a little bit more prepared for what Argento was wanting to do with this. And yeah, it is a little bit weird and kind of a little bit off the beaten path from what he typically does, but I appreciated, and for the most part, what he was doing. It's not a perfect movie by any means, and I still kind of think Julian Sands, who plays the titular Phantom, isn't the strongest performer in this one, but I like kind of the style and atmosphere that Argento conjures with this. And Asia Argento, she does a really nice job as kind of the subject of fascination for the Phantom. There are definitely some gnarly, gory scenes and kills here and there. The Phantom is raised up by rats, and kind of how that is materialized. It is very interesting and creepy, and overall, it's an interesting adaptation. And Argento wasn't the first director, I would imagine, to adapt kind of a Phantom of the Opera tale, but it works for what it's trying to do. And I'm glad that it did get a 4K release like they've been doing for some of the more later period Argento movies. This one turns out really well from Vinegar Syndrome. You get a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative in Dolby Vision. This is a very, very visually lush movie because it is a period piece, and that makes it look, especially the costumes and everything, looks really amazing with all the textures and everything. Not the most colorful movie, but when there are colors, they really kind of light up the screen. And this really holds up well in terms of shadow detail. There's so many like shadowy corridors and stuff throughout, and just underground layers, that there's no black crush, and that's very beneficial to the movie. No blown highlights. You get DTS 5.1 of the original, or both the Italian and English languages. So depending on what you want to experience, you have both of those, and they both hold up pretty well. You do get new special features. You get a commentary track. You get 8 interviews. You get alternate English titles. Pretty solid release. The interviews are really well done, and like the mixture of archival and new interviews, it works out really well. The Vinegar Syndrome's been doing a really nice job of including some cool new supplements for these releases. So if you're an Argento fan and you want all of his work on 4K, they've done another really solid job with the Phantom of the Opera, with this reversible cover art. You can also get a really nice slip box and all that kind of stuff, slipcase, if you go to vinegarsyndrome.com or select indie retailers like Orbit or Diabolic. You should be able to get a slip cover, but this is a standard release, and I'm happy with that. But if you're a slipcover fan, most of what I'm going to be talking about today, you can get kind of an upgraded version on the website. So Phantom of the Opera, Dario Argento, worth checking out if you are a fan of the movie or you're open to checking it out again. You might like it a little bit more the second time, like I did, and this is a good release. One of the most exciting announcements to start out the beginning of the year was the introduction of a new sub-label from Vinegar Syndrome. Surprise, surprise. They love their sub-labels, but this one was especially exciting for me. The newest one is Iconoscope, which deals directly with made-for-TV movies and television series, which is completely my jam. And their first release is the 4K upgrade of Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which is a movie that I believe I just spoke about in 2024 from the Warner Archive. But this was really, the Warner Archive released their disc a little while back. I think it's like 2019 or so. So now we are getting a 4K upgrade from that disc, from Iconoscope. I won't dig too deeply into the plot because I have gone over it before, but it is just like a couple moving into a house, woman making a really stupid decision to open up kind of a locked door in the basement, and little creatures start coming out and terrorizing her, and no one believes her. That's the basis of everything. Really interesting made-for-TV movie, very creepy ending, very like cool practical effects, all that kind of good stuff. And so you get the new booklet here, and what everyone is wondering is like, is this a upgrade from the Warner Archive Blu-ray. It is, but it isn't a night and day upgrade, just because I love Warner Archive and they do great work. And with Don't Be Afraid of the Dark in particular, they did a really nice 4K scan of that original Warner Archive Blu-ray that I would never put it down, just because it looks really amazing. But this has, I assume it's not the same scan, because this says this is from a 5K scan, but finished in 4K, from the original camera negative and finished in Dolby Vision. Now, this does look pretty amazing in Dolby Vision. You get really deep black levels. You get really nice textures, no blown highlights. I did notice at least one brief, like, blink and you'll miss it moment of, like, color fluctuation in, like, one scene. But other than that, everything looked pretty consistent. And that might have just been an issue with the elements. But overall, this is a nice, very, very nice looking disc, and a improvement over the Blu-ray. But if you already have that original Blu-ray, you'll have to ask yourself how important, like, Dolby Vision and, like, 4K release is to this particular title, just because that original Blu-ray is so good. Because you also didn't get too many new special features. It carries over the previous two archival special features. The only thing new is a sub 3-minute location tour of, like, now and then locations. So if they would have went a little bit more all out with the special features, I probably could have, like, more heartily endorsed this in terms of, like, upgrade your Blu-rays to this 4K. But Warner Archive is such a strong, has such a strong Blu-ray for a much cheaper price that while this is a really good disc, you'll just have to kind of ask yourself if you need it on 4K and you're interested in, like, forking out the money for this upgrade, whether it's worth it for you. But it is a really good release from Iconoscope, and I understand why they made this their first release, because it is a really popular title, and it is one I think a lot of people will want on 4K just to see it in the best quality possible. So Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Really good release from a line I'm so excited to see what comes of next, which we do have their second release, which is a little bit more exciting for me personally, not on 4K, but on Blu-ray, but hopefully indicative of what's to come. It is the complete series of the Boris Karloff series, The Veil. This is kind of like a forerunner to stuff like The Twilight Zone or Outer Limits or other anthology series like this. This had a really complicated release history. This is 3 discs. You get all 12 episodes and plus special features. And I'll show, this does have reversible cover art, which I didn't show that off on Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which I can do in just a second. But you are finally getting to kind of watch these episodes that were very kind of handled erratically in terms of their release. They were kind of like grouped together as features and stuff. There has been a previous DVD release from Shout Studios, so I've been told, but I do not have that release. But really glad to get this upgraded to Blu-ray. I love a good anthology series, especially when it's a little bit spooky. And if this is indicative of what Iconoscope has in store, bring it all. I'm all for it. So if you want an example of kind of the type of like mystery you'll get here, like the first episode on the disc is like, it's like a kind of a Rear Window-esque situation in which a man sees a crime being committed across, like, from a building from him. But then once the police show up, the crime hasn't happened yet. And it's really kind of an interesting kind of like tale of like, what did this man see? When did he see it? All that kind of stuff that goes into it. I won't spoil the like twists and turns, but it's just kind of like little mysteries like that through each episode. And the hit quality, while not flawless, I was pretty entertained by nearly all of these episodes. And if you love an anthology series, I don't think what you'll see this one is like that, like has it much shortcomings compared to other ones in kind of a similar vein. It delivers what you want. You get Boris Karloff in here, like showing up like pretty much every episode, kind of talking about it and showing up within the episode usually. And just an entertaining show, and I wish it would have lasted beyond the 12 episodes. It just wasn't meant to be at the time. But now we got it on Blu-ray, and that's super exciting because Iconoscope has given them new 4K scans from the 35mm and 16mm archival elements, depending on what the elements available. The booklet really goes kind of more deeply into like what materials were used for what episodes and stuff. Most of these are 35mm, but then there are some like where they needed 16mm elements to kind of restore opening credits or stuff like that. So these largely look really nice. These are like prints. So there are some shortcomings here and there in terms of like nicks and scratches and everything. It's not a pristine release, but it's an amazingly preserved release that's been cleaned up very admirably and looks amazing. And I think most fans will be very pleased by the results. You also get some special features. You get 4 commentary tracks from Tom Weaver, an additional commentary track on one of kind of the little bonus kind of episodes. And then you also get some additional interviews, some alternate versions of certain episodes, like the pilot and stuff. There's a couple of different versions here. There's lots of really good stuff on here that I think if you're an anthology series fan, scoop this up. The Veil is a fun time and a good second release from Iconoscope, and worth checking out. Just going back to the Don't Be Afraid of the Dark release real quick, I will show off that reversible cover art. As with most of the titles I'll be speaking of, both these Iconoscope titles do have slip-covered editions that if you want to pay a couple dollars extra, you can kind of upgrade those. So these are the first 2 Iconoscope releases, and very excited to see what they come up with next. Heading over to my favorite sub-label from the Vinegar Syndrome titles. This is heading over to Cinematograph and their release of the 4K debut of The Gambler, the one from the 70s with James Caan, 74, not the Mark Wahlberg version from the 2010s, the original classic, The Gambler. So this one is particularly exciting because we did not have a domestic Blu-ray previously. They had never made it to a Blu-ray upgrade. It had been released on Blu-ray internationally through imprint, but they used an older master. Now we finally get this restored by Cinematograph in their nice packaging. You get a really nice booklet with essays and photo reproductions and all that kind of good stuff here. So lots of good material in here, and both the 4K and Blu-ray disc, in which James Caan plays a teacher who is really good at his job during the day, but whenever he gets off work, he tends to be a degenerate gambler. He is an addict. You can tell because some of his choices throughout the movie are pretty erratic. He really gets himself into various situations where he is like being squeezed from all sides, and rather than like going for self-preservation, he will always choose an option that will maybe give him that high because he knows that he may lose. And sometimes he does lose. Sometimes he wins. Sometimes he loses. He's a gambler. And will he come out of it alive? Who knows? You'll have to tune in to find out. But really enjoyed this movie. James Caan gives a very icy, interesting performance. And all the side characters are kind of well thought out and interesting in their own right. Just a really fascinating movie from the 70s. Really kind of bleak, but very compelling, and really glad that Cinematograph finally got this onto my shelves so I could finally watch it. My wife's been wanting to watch this for a couple years now, and finally we were able to watch it. And glad that it got a 4K restoration in Dolby Vision. Now, compared to my next title I'll be talking about, they do not specify that this is from the original camera negative. While I suspect that it mostly is, there are a few small like shots that look a little rough. Not bad, but just rougher than the rest of the movie. And I'm a little curious about what happened there. Maybe it was like the conditions of the elements and stuff. it doesn't ruin the movie or anything, but it's a very grainy movie, which I love. The original film grain is completely kept intact. There's no egregious DNR or anything like that. Everything looks really nice. When it's cooking, it's really cooking. There's just a sprinkling of scenes throughout, maybe like less than 5 scene, like not scenes, but like shots that look a little bit rough. So it isn't a flawless release in my opinion, unless that was how the photography originally looked. It just looked a little askew from perfect, like just a touchdown. But largely looks really amazing. And I don't think many people will be too disturbed by a few downturns in quality. But Dolby Vision looks really nice. No crushed blacks. Everything is resolved well. Like the interiors of all the casinos and stuff look really nice and colorful and all that kind of good stuff. You do get the original restored mono track. It sounds very nice and stable and full bodied and everything. I liked how it sounded. You do get 2 commentary tracks, one new, one archival. You get new interviews, you get new video essays, you get audio interviews. I think some, but not all, of the special features from Imprint are carried over. Overall, Cinematograph bringing a classic movie to the States in good quality. The Gambler, worth checking out. If you're a James Caan fan, if you're a fan of like gambling movies, definitely check this one out if you haven't yet. It's a really, really cool movie. My next Cinematograph title has had Blu-rays before. It has had a couple Blu-rays, but now we're finally getting a 4K upgrade, and that is Jonathan Demme's Married to the Mob, a movie I first watched right around a year ago, and now I'm getting a 4K upgrade and happy to revisit it. A really kind of fun Jonathan Demme movie in which Michelle Pfeiffer plays the wife of a kind of a mob affiliated figure played by Alec Baldwin, who, spoiler alert, gets iced pretty early into the movie. He's an unfaithful guy and ends up getting killed. And then the mob boss sets his sights on kind of trying to get with Michelle Pfeiffer's character, and she does her best to kind of get out from like his situation by moving out of the city and into New York. In which at which time she's kind of followed by some federal agents who believe that she is actually the girlfriend of the mob boss and believe that they can turn her to kind of entrap her to like make their case against this mob boss, who she in reality despises. And then there's like an unlikely romance between Matthew Modine's federal agent and Michelle Pfeiffer, all that kind of good stuff. So this isn't going for strict credibility. There are violent moments and stuff, but it is more so a comedy. And I think it is a really fun movie. I liked it even more in a second viewing. And Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing. I love her so much, and she gives a really good performance. Matthew Modine does a really good job in like an early role for him. And then all kind of the tertiary characters, you'll see a lot of familiar faces. And they all do a really good job. Especially Dean Stockwell as our like main gangster figure, very captivating presence on screen. Now this has previously had 2 Blu-ray releases from what I know in the US. One from Kino Lorber, which I do own, which was several years old, and one from a few years back from Fun City Editions, which I do not own. I usually love Fun City Editions, and they usually put out really great work. But what I had heard is that particular release was not their strongest outing in terms of encoding and maybe like a few botched picture issues, like not like a catastrophe, but not their strongest work. So whenever I heard that Cinematograph was upgrading this to 4K, I think this was finally its chance to get its like most premium presentation, because I think the Fun City Editions was from a 2K scan, and now this is from a 4K scan from the 35mm original camera negative. It does state that directly. So, and you can tell it looks amazing. A virtuously flawless release. Everything looks, the grain resolves well, no clumpy grain. Everything resolves nicely, encoded very well. Very nice, colorful movie. You get all the textures on the outfits. Every single thing that you want from this release, it gives to you. You get the original restored stereo audio, which sounds really amazing. Now, if you do have that Fun City Editions release, don't automatically sell it off if you're a special features fan, because there are a lot of exclusives exclusive to that Fun City Editions release that like certain like Mercedes Ruehl, I believe, has an exclusive interviews and stuff there. But Cinematograph, they made sure you aren't missing it too much, because they add a ton of features themselves. You do get 2 new commentary tracks. One is from I believe Sean Fennessy, the film critic, and then the other is with Justin LaLiberty with Matthew Modine, who gets to speak on his experiences with the movie. And then there's also a separate interview with Matthew Modine that's very like insightful and everything. So glad Matthew Modine was so game to contribute to this release. You also get at least 4 other new interviews. You get a video essay. You get a podcast episode talks about in which they talked about this movie in depth. All kinds of stuff is on here, and so Cinematograph, they give you your money's worth with this release. So Married to the Mob, check it out if you're a fan, Jonathan Demme fan, Michelle Pfeiffer fan, crime movie fan, crime comedy fan. Lots of boxes ticked with this one, so make sure to check it out. Married to the Mob. Really happy to get a 4K Cinematograph, starting the year off right, in my eyes. Now we head to the Vinegar Syndrome partner labels, the first of which we'll talk about. So many to get through, so be patient with me. Starting out with Factory 25 and their release of Doomsdays. This is a really interesting, like 2013, I believe, film. 2013 film about 2 guys, pictured here, who are kind of just make their way through the world by going around breaking into people's houses, trying to squat for as long as they can, and quickly getting away if they get close to being caught or people walk in. So they're always constantly trying to just like live off of other people's kind of like lifestyles and stuff. And then this quickly evolves into them kind of slowly gathering new people into their lifestyle. First starting with a kind of younger, kind of 20-ish year old guy. And then eventually a woman joins them, and how this kind of affects group dynamics and everything. I really enjoyed it. It's a really charming, like, yes, these characters can be a little ridiculous and they can say things that'll make you roll your eyes, but it's never in a way that really turns you off from the whole experience. Everything is kind of has a very kind of charming aura to it. Kind of like a little bit more of a demented Wes Anderson film, but I really liked it. It's a good time, and I think definitely worth checking out if you want kind of a unique, kind of pseudo found family film, but still kind of crime ridden and with an ethos of destruction. So good from Factory 25. It looks really nice on Blu-ray. Glad it got that upgrade. One disappointing thing with this and the next release from them is there's only lossy audio, so Dolby Digital 2.0 audio, not lossless audio like DTS. That's a little bit of a bummer. It doesn't sound bad, but it could sound just a touch better if it was lossless. And you do get a couple of special features, including 2 short films, that one which inspired the film, and then another short film. So I like Factory 25. They put out some interesting releases, and Doomsdays are a really nice discovery for me. Worth checking out if you kind of like disaffected, off the grid stories of found family. So Doomsdays, worth checking out. Another one from Factory 25, which was actually released last month, but I'm catching up with, is No Sleep Till. This is set in Florida. It's set during an incoming hurricane in which all the tourists and locals are supposed to be evacuating. And there are a handful of people who aren't quite doing that expediently. They are either having house parties, or there's a storm chaser that comes in who thinks he can like really kind of make his mark. He's kind of an amateur. And then there's all just kind of different people who are just like kind of haunting this kind of small town, coastal town. And this is very vibes driven. I don't say that derogatorily. I really like kind of like a mood piece sometimes. So you do get like a narrative and stuff, like it is these people trying to like brace for this potential like horrific storm, but you also get a little bit of like interpersonal character conflicts and interesting kind of like tete-a-tetes of dialogue and everything. Overall, really interesting, I believe, debut from Alexandra Simpson. This is just really indie, low-key filmmaking that has a really fantastic soundtrack. And just like, I don't think it overstays its welcome. It's like just like at an hour and a half, I believe. But yeah, it's very hypnotic in its execution. And overall, if you can stand a movie that's like not overly like going from point A to B like in rapid succession with the plot, and you just can kind of chill with the movie, No Sleep Till is worth checking out. Similar to, like I said, the last movie, lost the audio, so no lossless audio, but it sounds fine. There's a little bit of like banding and like stuff with some of the darker scenes and everything, so it's not a perfect video transfer, but it's within the expected range of most of these productions, especially independent productions. In terms of special features, you do get some, including a behind the scenes piece. And yeah, not packed to the gills with special features, but you do get a little bit of a short film. So No Sleep Till from Factory 25, worth checking out if you like kind of like more low-key vibes driven cinema. We have our second release ever from Several Futures, a kind of newer partner label, and we have 7 Walks with Mark Brown. This is a French film, kind of documentary about a paleo botanist who is going around. He takes 7 trips to kind of find different kind of plants and like just different plants and different things that could start his own kind of like original garden and stuff. This is another, definitely even more so than No Sleep Till, very vibes driven, very relaxing, in which you just see a man speaking about like nature and life and like his process of what he is doing in terms of exploring nature and man's connection to nature and like harvesting certain plants and all this good stuff. And then you kind of approach this in a certain way at the beginning, and then in the latter half of the movie you kind of get to see certain footage recontextualized and like kind of presented in a different way that really kind of immerses you in this kind of our world at large and these beautiful scenery that he visits, and you really get a deeper appreciation of what you're seeing and what you have experienced with Mark throughout his journey with the people around him. It won't be for everyone, but if you like if you want a relaxing, nature-driven escape, this is going to be heaven for you. Like 7 Walks with Mark Brown. It's very cozy, chill, relaxing. It's nice. And it visually looks very nice on like the video quality is very good. Sonically, it's not overly ambitious, but you get to hear different like nature sounds and stuff throughout that sound pretty good. You get 3 short films from like the directors and stuff. You get a 41-minute interview with the directors. So nice special features, cool booklet, and just a really nice film to check out. 7 Walks with Mark Brown, worth seeking out. Next up, we're heading to my first of 2 IFC films, the first of which is from filmmaker Antonio Campos, and that is Afterschool, starring Ezra Miller. You also have a young Jeremy Allen White. So second time this week after Springsteen and Asin Timlin. who people also may have remembered from Shameless. So this is kind of a tough movie to watch. You got Ezra Miller playing a kind of disaffected youth. The first opening moments are him watching, like seeing him go through different kind of YouTube-esque like algorithms in terms of like, you get to see him like watching different videos. A lot of them turn kind of very violent, like the hanging of Saddam Hussein, a very violent porn movie. And it's very pseudo incel coded. And this all kind of you're seeing this character throughout the beginning of the movie until the real inciting incident is him capturing the overdose of these very popular girls who die at his school. He captures it on camera because of like a kind of a audiovisual club project that he's recording, and then he is tasked with kind of making their memorial video and how that kind of spirals out from there. I don't want to ruin all the twists and turns, but this is a very uncomfortable movie in a lot of ways in terms of like kind of being in this kind of headspace. It's very toxic and very just like misogynistic and all that kind of stuff, but it is interesting from a kind of sociological aspect in terms of like seeing how this character acts, what his actual thoughts are, and how it impacts like how he approaches different people and what he has actually done in his life. And Campos is an interesting director. This is definitely kind of like weaker among his work. He's definitely graduated over the years. I believe his follow-up to here was Simon Killer, which we have had on Blu-ray from IFC Films. I believe it's one of the first films from them, from the new partner label with Vinegar Syndrome. But glad to see this one get a Blu-ray release. It's not amazing, like it's not flawless, and it's definitely uncomfortable, but definitely worth checking out, just with especially the talent involved and just kind of seeing this early effort from this director who's pretty talented in his own right. We do get 2 commentary tracks, one of which is new from Campos, so you're gonna get more of an archival one, and then you get a newer one. You get some deleted scenes, you get a short film, you get outtakes, you get like different things that tie into the movie in terms of like cell phone footage, you get interviews and more. So much on here, so really good release from IFC Films. Just not the easiest movie to watch just because some of the subject matter, but Afterschool, definitely worth checking out just to see if you click with it. And also from IFC Films, we get our second outing with Asia Argento with Catherine Breillat's The Last Mistress. This is a period piece in which Asia Argento plays the mistress of a man who is it's kind of told non-linearly. A man who is intending to he falls in love and is intending to marry a more kind of well-to-do girl, and just trying to figure out what his actual relationship is with Asia's character, some of the trauma that is shared between them, all that kind of good. And it's just like kind of seeing this story unfold between the two, like their toxic relationship with one another. So lot to dig into here. Not my favorite partner label from this month, but just because there's a really good hit rate this month for me in terms of these partner label releases. It is engaging. It left me emotionally cold, which is supposed to. I wasn't 100% engaged to this. I liked it, just didn't love it. But I still think I admire it. But maybe on a repeat viewing, I'll get a little bit more from it. But as is, it's fine. HD transfer, little soft looking at times, but definitely passable. Just not the strongest HD transfer, but it's okay. Sound quality is good. You do get some special features, including a commentary track, video essay, and interviews. Overall, IC Films, decent release for this one. And if you're an Asia Argento fan, probably worth checking out. So yeah. The Last Mistress, check it out if you seem interested in this. Going more towards the surreal horror vein, we got Yellow Veil Pictures and their release of A Grand Mockery. This is a pretty wild movie, very surreal body horror aspects of about a man who works at a movie theater who very unsatisfied with his life, and over the course of the movie you see him kind of like shifting and really kind of growing in very grotesque ways, and just with, like I said, body horror influences, and just like kind of his conversations, how they kind of get warped throughout the movie. It's very very avant-garde, but effective for what it's doing. This is another one I didn't completely love, but there are interesting things about it, and especially the practical special effects were pretty amazing. Just the narrative I had a little bit of hard time kind of like really grasping onto, but decent movie overall. Just very kind of low key, just like very down and dirty movie. This looks good for what it's attempting to do in terms of like how it was filmed and everything. Very low budget, gritty movie, but looks good for what it is. You do get a commentary track, interview, deleted scenes, Q&As, short film, and more, packed with special features. So if you're interested in this one, you like a surreal body horror movie, a Grand Mockery, it would probably be one that would be wise to pick up. Going towards more traditional horror from Brainstorm Media, we have Birthright, about a couple, two women who are expecting their first child, who move into a new house and get to experience all the secrets and learn about all the secrets of the kind of what they've kind of moved into, and the different just weird things that are happening around their community. I don't want to give away too much, but you can kind of see a little culty stuff going on a little bit here. But overall, it's pretty decent in terms of these types of movies. It's definitely nothing super new, but it's executed pretty well. The performances are passable, not the strongest, but does what it needs to. Some of the like tense, thrilling moments, they work quite well. It's just the script is very blunt and just doesn't really, it doesn't like knock it out of the park. It's more so just like it does what it needs to do. So unless you're just like a hardcore horror fanatic, this isn't one that I think you should like rush out to. But if you eat up all things horror, there's definitely worse ways to spend your time. So Birthright, decent enough. In terms of special features, and audiovisual quality, it looks pretty decent. Some black crush here and there and banding and stuff, but overall fine. Audio is good. You get behind the scenes featurette and a deleted scene. So check it out, Birthright from Brainstorm Media, if it sounds interesting to you. Similar material, but executed differently, and in my opinion, a little bit better, from Utopia, is In Our Blood, in which a young woman who is a filmmaker returns back to her home to confront her mother, who's always kind of had like addiction issues and stuff, and she kind of reconnects with her for a night, and then whenever the next day tries to meet up with her, she is vanished. And so she kind of starts going after her mom, trying to track down what happened to her, since she used to be an addict. Like, did she relapse? Did something happen to her? All that kind of stuff. And really kind of figuring out the kind of seedy underbelly of this community and stuff. I overall thought this worked really well, and I like kind of the twists and turns throughout. It has almost pseudo documentary appearance at times, but then things kind of shake things up a little bit. So kind of handheld camera mixed with other stuff. Overall, fun movie. I enjoyed it, and I like the performances. Everyone did a really good job. You have a pretty strong HD transfer. Like I said, some of the footage like that is supposed to be replicating like kind of a found footage film. So it's not always like the most visually dazzling, but everything looks good into its intended state. You do get a couple of behind the scenes gallery, a photo and video gallery. You get a Q&A piece and a commentary track. So overall, In Our Blood, pretty solid. I enjoyed it and worth checking out if you're a fan of horror films. If you like throwback slasher films, or kind of, at least camp films, you got She Came from the Woods from ETR Media, in which some campers at kind of an old school camp mistakenly, foolishly, try to summon a spirit, and the spirit obliges them. Everyone starts getting killed, and it's a massacre. But if you like kind of old school camp bloody fun, there are arch characters in terms of like you got the ridiculous kind of punkish like jokester who doesn't take anything seriously but is always kind of like screwing over everyone. You got kind of the more like noble person who's trying to lead things. One of my favorite characters is the kind of camp leader and kind of mom of one of the campers, played by Cara Buono, who people may know from Stranger Things. But overall, I thought this was a pretty fun time. Everyone, like Will Patton's in this, and I like seeing him. Nice gory special effects, just decent like indie horror movie that while not perfect is definitely accomplishing what it's trying to do. In terms of audio visual quality, there was actually one scene that had pretty like a 4 or 5 second stretch that had pretty intense pixelization, and so I'm not sure what happened there. Everything else looked pretty solid, but there was just that kind of like either it was my disc had like a flaw in it, or maybe is somehow baked into the master. Let me know if your copy has this issue or if I just got a busted copy. But overall, besides that, like one brief moment, looks good, and sounds good as well. In terms of special features, we do get a commentary track, behind the scenes featurette, and some stills. So yeah, nice release from ETR Media. I think this is one of their more solid narratives they released. They release a lot of documentaries, but their narrative's a little bit more hit or miss with me. This is definitely my favorite in recent months from them. So She Came from the Woods. Worth checking out for sure. Next up, we have a very early film from director Ty West, director of the X trilogy. We have from Glass Eye Pix, Trigger Man, which is based on a true story. I haven't investigated how true it is, but I doubt it's like super true. Which a group of friends go out into the woods to have a hunting trip, kind of decompress and everything, and they slowly start to find themselves hunted by a madman with a gun. So the hunters become the hunted, and it's really down and dirty, shot on video, just like really lo-fi filmmaking, indie filmmaking, and which it gets pretty to the point pretty quickly. Things really start hitting the fan about like 20-30 minutes in, and then the rest of the time it's just kind of like anxiety trying to figure out how the characters are going to potentially get out of this. So Ty West, early effort from him, but still showing like his prowess, like shooting on video, run and gun style. Everything worked pretty well. You got Larry Fessenden in a small role. This is a Glass Eye Pix production after all. And yeah, everything is good enough and entertaining, most importantly. So glad to check out an early work from him. Like I said, shot on video, so not the most visually impressive movie, but I think this is about as good as that can look. Audio wise, decent, not amazing, but fine. You do get a 2 commentary tracks, one of which is a new commentary track from Ty West, and one is an archival, so you get to compare how he felt about things. I like the new one quite a bit just to see how he feels about it from these days. And there are hints within that commentary track that there is another early Ty West film that we probably will be getting soon from Glass Eye Pix. You do get a behind-the-scenes featurette and a Q&A and a short film. So overall, Triggerman, if you're a Ty West fan and you're a completist, worth checking out. It's a pretty entertaining movie, even though it's more rough around the edges than some of his later work. Next up, we have one of the more important films I'll be talking about this week from a new partner label, Watermelon Pictures, and their release of The Encampments, a new documentary that deals, that kind of looks at the student protests on universities, specifically here, the protests at Columbia University as students kind of protest the university's connections to the conflicts in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza, and kind of seeing how this looks on the ground with all the footage of like filmmakers ingrained within this movement, and seeing how it kind of conflicts with some of the narratives that were formed by the media at large in terms of like it being like anti-Semitic and everything, and how a lot of like Jewish people who are against what is happening in Gaza were a part of this movement and all this stuff. It's a very fascinating, moving watch. Maybe a tad sensationalistic in a few like presentational aspects, but I can forgive it that a little bit, and just it's so prescient and so important, and very well made in terms of like how quickly it was shot, edited, and like very like concise as a movie and very pointed at what it wanted to say. I've been watching a lot of documentaries in preparation for Sundance, and a lot of recent documentaries I've seen like have a good idea but don't really seem to know how to execute it. And Encampments seems to know what it wants to do, and it does that pretty well. So very vital movie, and very glad to have Watermelon Pictures welcomed into the Vinegar Syndrome family. I think it'll. They have a lot of great movies that in their catalog that I'm so excited for them to get a Blu-ray. Fingers crossed. But glad to start with this one, and glad to have it on Blu-ray. Nice HD transfer, looks really good. Very solid transfer considering all the different sources involved, but everything's pretty consistent. You do get a commentary track, some deleted scenes, and another exclusive clip. Overall, really great release from Watermelon Pictures. And then we have a few film movement releases to kind of close us out with, the first of which is from director Liu Ye. That is an unfinished film. I previously spoke about his, I believe, late 90s film, Suzhou River. It might have been early 2000s. But he's been around for a while, and this is it's a Chinese filmmaker, and this is a mixture of documentary and narrative, so it's kind of docu-fiction, in which at the beginning of the movie you do have a director, our director, who is like looking at old footage of like an unfinished film from years back that just never was able to get made. And so you see them rediscovering this footage and trying to figure out how they could potentially finish this movie finally. And then they were intended to do so, and then COVID-19 hit. And so then is when it really kind of like blends documentary and fiction, because these filmmakers were once again kept from making their movie, but then they're also all had cameras. So it's a really deft like kind of balancing act between like what they were capturing during the intense lockdowns in China, and then like how people were acting when they were like self-filming and all that kind of stuff. And it's sometimes a little bit like difficult to parse what is real and what is not. But even with all of that, whenever you reach the end, like the title, An Unfinished Film, still kind of overall holds, because while you get to a certain point within the pandemic, which they kept kind of pushing back the production to kind of accommodate new developments within kind of the COVID-19 pandemic, like what is happening in China and like how they like try to like eradicate it through lockdowns, and then like it comes back with a new variant and all that kind of stuff. Like it is an unfinished film in terms of like this is like constantly evolving, and they just eventually had to kind of just stop and just like say like we're done. But there's still, just because the film is done doesn't mean the world has stopped evolving and all that kind of stuff. And I personally struggle a little bit with COVID era movies and like dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's not my favorite. I didn't hate the movie, but it just wasn't one that I could find myself completely loving, just because the content itself is just a little bit difficult, like for me to really just grasp onto. But for what it is, I think it's a good movie. It just isn't completely for me. Visually a mixed bag, just because a lot of it is like self-shot documentary, like camera phones and all kinds of stuff mixed with other like better footage and stuff. So everything looks as good as possible, just it's not always the most visually like dazzling movie or anything. Sounded good. You get a Q&A with the director. It's about 15 minutes long, and it's pretty decent in talking about like what he was trying to accomplish and everything. So an unfinished film. If you like the director, worth checking out. But just be aware that it does deal directly with COVID-19. So if that also is a little bit of a subject you don't love revisiting much, maybe not the film for you. Another film, this one from Singapore, and this we have Stranger Eyes. This is a much more like kind of straightforward narrative movie. Starts out about a couple whose young infant daughter has been abducted in recent months, and they are trying to look for her until one day they start receiving some videos, like DVDs of someone who was following them and kind of like following their daily lives. Sometimes they receive several DVDs. Sometimes they're just like up to really nothing in the grocery store. Other times they were doing some things that maybe they didn't want other people to see. But this movie isn't as just like kind of like a ripoff of Cachet as you might think, because it's not as interested in kind of the core mystery of like, where is this child? Is it still alive? Like, who did it and everything. You kind of get to know pretty quickly who is sending these DVDs. But it's not maybe necessarily connected to the disappearance of this young baby. And it's really dealing a lot with like the nature of loneliness and social media and all this kind of stuff. And it's very interesting. It's a little over 2 hours long, but even at that length, I didn't find myself too like antsy or anything like that. It was a very interesting kind of trajectory, and overall I thought it was a very fascinating movie. This release from Film Movement looks really nice. Nice HD transfer. It's a pretty recent movie, just came out a couple months ago in the US. Looks very nice. HD transfers great. DTS or Dolby True HD 5.1 and LPCM 2.0 audio. Everything sounds good. And then you also get a making of / Q&A kind of combined featurette that is pretty good as well. So Stranger Eyes, if you like a good mystery but with like a little bit more thematic depth to it, worth checking out. Really excited about my next set. We have the early films of Lee Isaac Chung, who people may know best as the Oscar-nominated director of Minari from a few years back. Here we get 3 of his early films. On the first disc, we have a word that I'm going to butcher, but Mun Yorungabo. And then we have Lucky Life and Abigail Harm on the second disc. So throughout these films, we get to see some of the works that a lot of people don't know about these early works because they kind of felt like maybe Minari was his feature debut. It wasn't. He had done these 3 films before, along with some other like documentary type stuff. But you have one film, his first film, Munya Rangambo, that deals a lot with the fallout from the Rwandan genocide and how it affected the people on the ground, and it directly follows a pair of non-actors who from when it was Lee Isaac Chung creating this movie kind of from people around the community where his wife was working at this time, and he just kind of made a movie with kind of non-professionals, but really follows 2 people who are 2 friends who kind of go on a journey, one of which is one is trying to get revenge and the other is just trying to make it home, and how this kind of like conflicts with them along the way. Lucky Life is a narrative about like a group of friends going to a beach house, knowing that one of them does have a terminal illness, how this impacts them, and then how it kind of moves on after that, and like you see one of the couples that they follow, how this is impacting them as they are like planning themselves to welcome a child. And then with Abigail Harm, it has a little bit of a folk tale ish thing where like this woman is a person who reads for the blind, and she one day meets kind of a magical person who ends up like kind of telling her of a way that she can like find someone to love her and everything, and it kind of goes kind of a magical realism sense. While not as good as Minari, these are all interesting movies in their own way, and having these all collected so you can buy them all in one fell swoop and check them out, I'm really grateful for Film Movement. These all look pretty solid in terms of how they're supposed to look. Each film gets a new commentary track from Lee Isaac Chung, which is great. And then you get an additional featurette on his debut. Overall, visually looks pretty nice, and audio is good. So if you're a fan of Lee Isaac Chung, worth checking this out. And just for these nice humanistic tales, that's my jam, and this set really provides that. And one of the biggest releases of the month is one that you probably can't purchase right now because it sold out very quickly, but it is from Film Movement Classics and their new 4K release, Sergio Corbucci's The Great Silence, in which we have Jean-Louis Trintignant and Klaus Kinski here. Classic spaghetti western, snowy western, in which you have Jean-Louis as a mute avenger trying to go after some bounty hunters led by Klaus Kinski. And it's big, sprawling. There's avenging forces and all kinds of stuff. There's great kind of shootouts, great dialogue sequences, very tense things. I've heard people say this was inspiration for The Hateful Eight. I can kind of see where that was coming from. It's just a really fantastic spaghetti western with like great thrilling sequences and great performances as well. In terms of this Film Movement release, this is my first time ever seeing this movie and owning it. HDR10 transfer from the 4K restoration, that's the master that's provided. Looks really good. Overall, some of the filming kind of techniques that I saw, like especially early on, there looked to be kind of like a filter / kind of like spidery webbing over the camera, but I had seen in some of my like research that was just like the type of camera that was used. But overall, when things get cooking, things look really nice. Encoding is pretty solid, and the grain resolves pretty well. I've heard some people criticize the color timing of the movie. I don't know exactly how it's supposed to look, but everything looked in line to me. But if you are very sensitive to that, I think this is kind of a similar master that was used for overseas releases. I do not have any other release to compare it to, so I'm not exactly sure. But I think it looks good for what it is. It's like a gorgeous western and lots of snowy like vistas and I don't see a lot of like blooming or anything, so everything looks pretty good to me. Audio track holds up pretty well. You do get 3 commentary tracks, some interviews, featurettes, a documentary, an alternate ending. Overall, Film Movement Classics, it's their second 4K release after the Dam Busters, and I know a lot of people are excited for what's to come next, but so far it seems people are thrilled by this one, and if you can find it after it's restocked, I think you're probably well past getting the limited edition with the slipcover and everything. But the standard edition will be restocked, so don't overpay for this, like on eBay or anything. It will be restocked. You just gotta wait. But it is worth getting whenever you can. From Sergio Corbucci and Film Movement Classics, The Great Silence on 4K. Worth scooping up. And that is my show. I hope you have found something that you are interested in. If so, let me know in the comments. I appreciate anyone who takes the time to check this out. I always, if you want me to talk about something specific in the future, make sure to leave that in the comments. I always am open to that. Make sure you like this video and share it around to anyone that you know loves physical media. That's always very much appreciated. I do this every week, so I appreciate those who are subscribed to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel, so you don't miss an episode. I will be back again next week with another great batch of titles, but until next time, enjoy these movies.